I have a large collection of arcade games. I wonder how much money it would cost me to complete all of them if it was a real arcade. Only one way to find out. On the channel, we've looked at horror, and we've also looked at violence. And it's never really occurred to me that horror and violence are a match made in heaven. Just like fish and chips, chicken and rice, banana and toffee, strippers and poles. Horror and violence have created many icons of cinema and gaming that people know and love today. It's a winning formula, and that's exactly what Namco had in mind with their 1988 hit, Splatterhouse. A side-scrolling beat-em-up gore-nography that takes influence from H.P. Lovecraft and slasher films of the 80s, as if you couldn't tell. For those of you who are unaware, no, this isn't Jason Voorhees. This is the character you play as, Rick Taylor, a parapsychology student who is on a quest to save his girlfriend and, to be honest, comes across as a bit of a dick in the opening scene. Rick and his girlfriend Jennifer are running through the rain to take shelter. Jennifer trips and Rick doesn't even dignify her with a look, like a total Chad, and they take cover in a mansion. Then Jennifer is in trouble. Turns out this mansion is full of monsters and other surreal ugly as fuck sights. Once you start the game, it turns out Rick was killed and a flying mask resurrects him. No text, no context, it just does. Looking on the wiki, the longer version is that the mansion has a reputation of being known as the Splatterhouse, because rumours of twisted experiments by Dr. West have circulated. The mask that revives Rick is known as the Terror Mask, a sentient Mayan artifact. It attaches itself to Rick to give him the strength he needs to save Jennifer. Don't pay too much attention to it though, because the plot is hardly mentioned at all. It's all about the violence, baby. The first level finds you in the catacombs under the mansion, and already you can see what made this game stick out. The gore. As you progress through the levels, you'll see many disturbing sights, from mangled corpses, hideous creatures, and bodies still twitching in pain. It's delightfully disturbing and masterfully sets the tone of the game. The death animations are also really well done too. Heads can be decapitated, guts are spilled, bodies splat against the wall, corpses melt away, all in very convincing detail. Very impressive stuff back in the day. On a side note, I'm not sure if this is just me, but Rick looks like he's covered himself in body oil before he got started. To fight against these horrors, violence, once again, is the answer. You use the stick to move along a 2D stage. You have one button to jump and another to attack. You can combine them to pull off various moves. The attacks are single attacks, so a lot of button bashing will come into play, but timed attacks can also play a part too. So keep a cool head whatever situation you face. Taking damage removes one of your 4 hearts and you have 2 lives per credit. When you die for good, it's game over. You enter your initials, then start the level from the beginning if you have any more credits. At the end of every level, you'll find a boss. What makes these bosses stand out though, is that they aren't your traditional big bad guy boss. The first boss is a swarm of definitely not chest bursters. Your task is to defeat all of them before moving on. Bosses sometimes also have a stinger moment. You defeat all the non-chest bursters and then... Little bastard! Stay alert when fighting a boss, as these moments are guaranteed to catch players off on their first playthrough. Level 2, we get an animation of Rick, totally not Jason Voorhees, posing for us as the door kicks itself in and we get a glimpse of the next level. On this level you gain access to more weapons to use. Weapons come in 2 categories, ranged and melee. Both are picked up using the attack button. Melee weapons tend to be huge and can be used on enemies for grotesque results. Ranged weapons tend to be small and can only be thrown once, so make it count. If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge my fist. You dodged neither. There isn't any difference between the weapons bar its cosmetic look and its kill style. Most enemies die in one hit, so there aren't stats for the weapons either. But when they can do this, you'll appreciate them every time. You can't take them with you between sections of the level, so have fun with them while you can. The levels are made up of small sections, each requiring a different approach. All involve violence, but sometimes you'll need to employ platforming skills to navigate through the area and avoid enemies that can't be hurt. Each of the areas also changes in the background, giving the impression you are working your way through the large mansion along with at least one new threat of some kind. This area has a start in the house, then into a flooded basement where we have fun smacking them against the wall, with some very satisfying sound effects. At the end, we climb a ladder to fight the boss, which is a room. Yep, even the furniture hates us, and it has multiple stages to it. First, the wardrobe attempts to throw wine glasses to hurt you, as well as the chandelier throwing candles and a beer can. Then this chair starts bouncing around, which isn't too hard as long as you judge the angle of its bounces correctly. Then the combat knife stuck in the wall starts flying at you, which can be defeated by squatting in the corner and using the power of foot. Repeat this process once 2 knives start attacking you. Just be sure to dodge the painting once it starts flying around. It will act like a bouncy ball when you hit it, so keep an eye on the eye and make sure you smack it when it's level to you. Once you defeat the painting, the boss is defeated and the spirit flies out the room. Only a douchebag programs a cheap insta-death like that into the game. It kills you no matter how much health you have. It hurts even more if you're on your last life too. Fuck you, Namco. Level 3, we're in the gardens now. This level's got a nice colour scheme to it. It's a nice change from the dull colours of the mansion. Oh yes. At the beginning of the level you get a... and it's a beauty. It blasts zombies to bits and you get 8 shots out of it. It won't hit wolves though, but you can use the power of foot to defeat the wolf. What the fuck? What the fuck is that? God, these enemies are so nightmarish and fucking hard. This game is very difficult. The sections in between bosses aren't so bad. In fact, I'd say the section where we were in the water for the first time is probably the easiest part of the game. If you spend too long stood still, a purple shape will approach you. It never did reach me, so I don't know what it does, but I would guess that it would instantly kill you, but I wasn't going to find out. There are also environmental hazards you need to be aware of. Like in this level, standing on a spotlight that's on the bridge gets you pulled under the bridge, where the level changes to yet another water level, which is harder this time because you don't have a weapon to knock the guys away at distance. You might die a few times before reaching a boss, but the levels always play the same, so if you can memorize what happens and when, you can defend yourself effectively with the very responsive controls. You will become the John Wick of horror. Bosses, on the other hand, are a different story. They are difficult for different reasons. Some can be beaten once you find a strategy, while others, like this boss, are a lot easier if you happen to have the right circumstances, which in this case is having 2 shotguns. If you don't, fuck, you're in for a bad time. The chainsaw arms attack quickly with a long reach, longer than your arms and even longer than you with a melee weapon. He is also an input reading fuckpig. The literal second you throw a punch, he jumps back while taking a swing at you, and the very instant you're in range to hit him, he attacks straight away and knocks you back. If you nail him with a shotgun, there's a chance he will jump off the back wall to get you. This is the dickiest of all the bosses, and he is so hard to beat. In the end, I just brought both shotguns with me through the level and kicked every other enemy. It took a while, but when I got to the boss... Closed casket, motherfucker. Level 4, back into the mansion. Harpoons are the weapon on show here, and they've got my favourite death animation. There's also holes in the floor and spinning floor traps. Easy to jump over, just a matter of timing. Oh, come on! Alright, they're not that easy to avoid because of this off-screen crap, and you may misjudge your jumps a few times. If you happen to fall down a hole, you'll get another alternative path, this time full of non-chest bursters. Not too hard, but if you make it through, you respawn on the surface next to the hole you fell down, so if anything, you're just extending the level. The next section of this level does actually have a pretty creative idea. When you walk through this hall of mirrors, when you reach a certain mirror, your reflection comes out to fight you. They are tricky to fight because they are one-frame attack fuckers and attack so very often and quick, but they are fairly weak, going down in 3 to 4 hits, just like you. Chances are though they are gonna trade blows with you most of the time, so expect death a fair amount here. Nice attention to detail because here the reflections actually show the opposite side of Rick. The boss for this stage takes place in a church? Inside, we fight the boss, which looks like a Guns N' Roses album. but more metal. This boss is an absolute tricky twat. First, you have to chase it while it shoots flying heads at you. You can hit them out the air, but sometimes they approach at an angle and the hit won't register. Alternatively, you can attempt to avoid the heads until they fade from existence. When you reach the end of the church, it then begins to hop around and keep throwing heads. You need to destroy the heads floating around the cross so you can attack the cross itself. Not as easy as it sounds though, as the constant barrage of heads and the heads respawning around the cross are an irritant, to put it lightly. The hatchet helps here because the reach can keep you out of harm's way for a time. Again though, the awkward angle the heads fly in can really screw up your run. I spent ages on this boss and every death took me back to the start of the level. At first I wasn't sure I had to hit the cross because there wasn't really any indication I was damaging the cross. It sounded like I was just hitting something blunt and the cross itself wasn't flashing. When you do beat the boss however, we get a cutscene where Rick stares at an altar while organ music plays. Keep it down, I'm enjoying the music! Stage 5, we actually get to see Jennifer in this picture. We're coming baby, don't worry. At this point, the difficulty is really ramping up. Pretty much all the enemies you've encountered so far are here to fight you, along with new ones, and this level is one of the most frustrating of all. That said, the difficulty of the levels and the enemies has been climbing at a reasonable pace. The repeated enemy variety in the levels does prepare you for the fights ahead and puts you in the mindset that you can't just constantly run through the level by being reckless. Tactical fighting will have to be applied often, and in this level, it's certainly true. The first section has you fighting 3 possessed chairs with a stick. Not hard, whack 'em at range and off you go. The second section, however... oh, this fucking bit. So you need to jump over these gaps full of hands and whatever it is they're crawling in. Falling in obviously hurts you, but the platforms you jump on are super slippery and will push you into the pit if you don't time your jumps properly. They even push you back while you're jumping. Some of the hands attempt to give you deadly high fives by jumping out from the stuff, but you can beat them with a lethal bro fist. It doesn't look hard, but it's an absolute bitch to get used to. If you make it across, you get a choice of 2 routes to take. First, I went down and ended up in a water level. Okay, the water levels are pretty easy. The mudmen die in 1 hit and the urchins you can jump over no problem. What's next? Quite a few smiling bodies here. Maybe it won't be so bad. Or not. I need to mention this. The music in this room is very out of place. The music in the other rooms has been a well-orchestrated arrangement of intense and eerie, but with a balanced sense of action to them. Here though, it feels... funky. Horror fans among you might have noticed quite a few homages to horror icons of the 80s. So I can't help but think that this music, along with the zombies here, is meant to be a reference to Thriller. The enemy here can be described as a mini-boss, and to be honest, I think it's the only mini-boss in the game. Zombies will swarm you while this Wizard Grim Reaper floats around you. If you kill a zombie, it falls back to the ground, but if the wizard completes his chant, all the zombies stand back up again. If you kill them all quickly, you can hit him before he finishes his chant. Best way to beat him is to either camp in one corner and kill the zombies, then hit him when he flies over to you, or chase him across the stage and jump kick him until he dies like a Jedi. The next section has wolves and ghost bitches in it that tried to drop skulls on you. I died here, so I didn't get to explore much of this level. This time I went up and encountered the ghost in a hallway with holes in the floor. As well as ghosts, there are also paintings that come to life to attack you. Thankfully, just the one kind of painting will try and kill you, so you can see them coming. This section offers multiple paths. Going down this ladder takes you to the wizard mini-boss. Again. And going straight takes you to a room where you have to fight your reflection in front of the Doctor's dress collection? nope, fuck you, I'm just gonna keep walking. I'm the bigger man here. The next section sees us walking through a non-chest-bursting nest as the level continuously scrolls. Not too bad, just hard to judge all of their angles right all the time. Of the two routes you can choose from, I felt the up route was easier for me, but I still died a fuck ton trying to get through it. When I finally did, I entered the room where Jennifer is lying on the sofa. Uh-oh, time of the month. Jennifer does a freak-out dance and turns into this abomination. Deaths aplenty with this boss. Her bouncing pattern is random. Sometimes she makes a high and long bounce and other times she makes short, quick bounces. And her claws have a massive reach, so if you try and run away from her, chances are she's gonna get you. She has no attack pattern and moves a lot faster than you can too. Even simply bumping into her hurts you. She is vulnerable when she's in the air though, and that's your best chance to strike. But even if you get her, the claws are likely to hit you as you retreat. After a few hits she returns into human form, but then she changes back into monster form. I thought this would signal a second phase or something, but there's no noticeable change. She doesn't gain any new attacks or behavioural patterns or habits or anything like that. At best you can describe this as a breather for the player. A hard yet dull boss, I must say. The only tactic I could come up with was to catch her at the peak of her high jump and back off as soon as I could, but missing those attacks cost me dearly. When you land the final love tap, you defeat her, and a sad moment as Rick holds her one last time in his arms before her spirit fades away. The arms of the angel. Bonk! Oh, you prick! For some reason, you get slapped on the back of the head by this monster and he flees down this literal shithole, which takes us to the penultimate stage. The guts of the house. So it turns out the house is alive and we're going to strike it at the heart. Along the way we will fight various saliva monsters born from fart bubbles. Getting grabbed by one of these ugly spit kids will hurt you over time, so you need to shake them off. The screen can get clustered pretty quickly with these enemies, and touching a bubble will hurt you, so you need to be precise with your movements and strikes to get through with a lot of health. I don't even know if this thing has a heart, or even what it will look like. Well, that looks important, and it's pulsating. That'll do. After you damage this vital organ, you are taken outside and the final section of the game begins. As the house and garden burns you to the ground, I can only guess that the trees are throwing flaming logs at you and the Human Torch along with his many identical siblings make an appearance. You can't kill any of them, so pixel perfect jumps and landings are the keys to stopping your tootsies getting burnt off. Good luck though, because you have even less space to manoeuvre than you did in the house's arsehole. This segment is short, but tricky. If you make it past though, you encounter the final boss of the game. Christianity! Actually no, the mask fires the spirit at the grave and out comes a creature known as Hell Chaos. And it looks like the most mangled erection you've ever seen. And he sucks. For a final boss, he's actually quite the pushover in theory. The only reason I died a few times here was a mixture of cheap hits and experimenting what I could do to actually hurt the boss. Obviously, the head is the weak point, as you do the Splatterhouse shuffle on him. The head will launch the slowest moving rubble ever into the air, which can hurt you. You can avoid them as long as they fall in the right pattern, otherwise you'll get hit because Rick is too big to move through the gaps they make, or because you were locked in a punching animation and one slowly drifts on top of your head. They also can't be punched out the air, so they are going to be your primary source of incoming damage. The creature also tries to claw at you with its hands. You can avoid them by walking away or with a well-timed jump. The hands themselves can't be hurt, and even lightly brushing up to them also hurts, so avoid getting all touchy-feely with them. As the creature nears death, it will start clawing at you while its head is above ground, often resulting in you being trapped and will have to take a hit from at least one source. When you make a boss that has to rely on cheap hits to hurt you, it ceases to become fun and just becomes a fucking pain in the arse at that point. When you do defeat the mutant erection though, it falls flaccid and the tormented spirit erupts in bright lights. Now alone, with the mansion in flame, the mask destroys itself and the credits roll. But was there really a victory here? Rick has lost the love of his life, and now must wander back into the world he came from. Yet he will never be able to see it in the same way again, as the sights from the hellish night will continue to haunt him for the rest of his natural life, all the while walking this hopeless path by himself, never to love again. Or wait until the sequel to find out if that's what happens. Splatterhouse is a bloody and bloody good game. Its difficulty can be harsh and you will get frustrated with it, but you will memorise the levels and learn to adapt to the enemies, and smacking around the monsters in its ghastly locations will never not be satisfying. It's a game that rarely relies on cheap tactics to kill you and actually rewards skill. It's a controversial part of gaming history, and if you're looking for a challenge, this is the game for you. And that was Splatterhouse. Thanks for watching, everyone. Join me next time where we'll see what happened if the cavemen invented the Olympics before the Greeks.